Hey there, good evening and welcome to the Whitwam Organics Weekly Nursery and Garden Report and live Q&A. I'm David Whitwam, your host. Thank you very much for joining me. We got a great show today. One of my good friends, Kenny, is back on. We're going to talk to him a little bit about how his school year is going. I had him back on. He was my first guest, and back then I was trying to keep these videos down to 30 minutes, so I really didn't I don't feel like I gave him the time that we'll be able to give him today. Plus, it was right before school started. So we really didn't know what his ag program was going to look like with COVID. And so we're just going to kind of get an update on that. There's some exciting news as far as a garden that was built in the front of the school. So there's some extension to his ag program. Kenny's also really good at kind of keeping track of what he's growing at his own house, and I think that's really cool. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and just how his growing season went late summer and through fall and early winter. And I'll talk a little bit about what I have going on as well. But first, before I bring Kenny in, let me just run through with you guys what we have going on in the nursery. So we have planted all of our tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants for the upcoming spring season. They're all up, probably about 2 to 3 inches high right now. Here in Tampa, we're expected to get down to like 37, 38 degrees. So all of those are on heating pads out in the nursery, covered up with a plastic dome to keep them safe. Typically, what I do is right about now, I'm looking really closely at the 2-week forecast. It looks like after this cold spell, we're going to go right back up into like 50s for nighttime, mid to upper 70s for daytime temperatures, maybe upper 60s. Really, my kind of magic date is Valentine's Day. I wait for Valentine's Day, look at the 2-week forecast, and figure out what we're going to be doing. However, that's in like the gardens. In the nursery, things are a little bit different because we have to be ahead of the game and we have to be ready because we have customers with our online store all over the state and up and coming in the entire country. So we are going to be planting our cucumbers, squash, melons, and beans probably next week. One of the pieces of advice that I give to people is if the seeds are cheap and plentiful, if there's nothing special to them, or you're not like barely out of seeds or almost out of seeds, whenever you feel comfortable, you can straight seed that stuff into your garden. If it's warm enough for it to germinate, that stuff germinates pretty quickly. If it doesn't get killed by a frost or a freeze, you're way ahead of the game. If it does, no harm, no foul. Just go out there and plant it again. That stuff, like I said, germinates very quickly. So, like I said, the melons, the squash, the cucumbers, stuff that germinates really quickly, stuff that really doesn't enjoy when it gets too hot during the summertime. If the seeds are cheap, it's probably right after this cold spell. I would not say it's too early to get out there and plant that stuff straight in your garden. Again, if you're wrong and it gets popped, no big deal. I wouldn't even bother covering it up. Just after the next frost or freeze, plant it again. If you really want to be ahead of the game, you can plant some seeds straight in your garden, and you can plant some of them like in little 4-inch pots or something, and then you'll have replacement plants. That stuff grows pretty quick. And so to really maximize your season, your spring season with that stuff, because I don't think any of us really know when the last frost or freeze or really cold weather is going to be. It can be as late as the first week of March. But I think one thing that we can all agree on is some point in between about the second week of May and the second or third week of June, it's going to get hot, the bugs are going to show up, and that stuff's going to die. So that's coming at us like a brick wall. It ain't going to stop. We know the daily rainstorms are coming, all the stuff that's going to kill those plants. It's heading our way. So to really maximize on those seasons, you want to get that stuff in as early as possible. The stuff that we really want to wait on is what takes longer to grow kind of in its early stages. So those tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, I really do wait until, like I said, around Valentine's Day, I look at the 2-week forecast. And if we're in the clear, not that I haven't been wrong before, but if we're in the clear, I just go ahead and bite the bullet and get that stuff planted out in the garden so I can get growing as best as possible. We planted our last round of the brassicas, flowering brassicas. We have the cabbages, kale, collards. We planted our last round of mustards. This is for the season. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. We're kind of like we're transitioning out of winter right now and into spring. Probably about the 1st or 2nd week of March, we'll start planting some of the summer crops, getting ready for the heat that, like I said, that we all know is coming. As far as garden projects go, let's see, what did I do? Oh my gosh, today at my garden in Sulphur Springs, the YMCA Learning Garden, I harvested. Let's see if I can get a good picture of the harvest. That's not a bad picture. I wonder if that's going to show up. Nope. I knew it. The light's going to give a glare. Anyway, I harvested some really nice big bok choy, romaine lettuce, Manoa lettuce, Portuguese collards, Georgia collards, Siberian kale, carrots, Thai peppers, strawberry, star fruit, purple top turnips. That entire harvest went to the Sulphur Springs K-8 school, where we have a contact there who's been making up information and recipe cards for what comes out of that garden. My other project just got done, or we just finished and kind of did a little news thingy on Monday. That was a kind of a community garden for the kids at the Oaks at Riverview. That was kind of in line with the Sustainability Green Week that the NFL was kind of putting together throughout the Tampa area, which I'm really glad that they found me and decided to put in a garden for some kids with some of those funds instead of just a bunch of landscape plants, which we do love landscape plants. Makes the neighborhood look nice, especially if they were natives and pollinators. But my other project that I was buried with was the garden. It's kind of a sister garden to this one at the J.L. Young Tampa Housing Authority senior living apartments right around the corner. And hopefully when COVID's over, we can kind of bring the residents of each garden to each other's garden and have multi-generational gardening going on. That was always the goal, but kind of a blessing in disguise with COVID. We've always brought the kids from the Oaks at Riverview over to the garden at J.L. Young. But now that we had COVID and then we had the NFL money in the Tampa Bay area, they decided to just go ahead and put a garden at the Oaks. So a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Now they have a garden of their own right in their backyard. We planted collards, kale. I'm not going to be able to remember it all. Collards, kale, lettuce, spinach. That's all I'm remembering. Mustard greens, Florida broadleaf mustard. They had brought tomatoes and peppers with them to plant out, and I told them that I was a little nervous about tonight's lows to hold back on it. But luckily, when I had kind of charted the whole thing out the week before, I had made room for all that stuff. So we had some nice big empty spaces, and then hopefully after the weather warms up a little bit, the kids can get out there and plant their tomatoes and peppers in the garden. There was a news story, I believe, on Channel 10 about it. I think it's on their website about the garden at the Oaks. But that is it for my nursery and garden report. And it is time to bring in Mr. Kenny Gil. Kenny, don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thanks for
Hey,
how's it going?
How's it going, man?
Good. other than the struggle of raising tropical fruit trees in Florida or Tampa, where we get these ups and downs. So I had to bring in, you can see behind me, my cacao and mamey sapote and a couple other things are in here in the room with me.
Well, those don't even like it when it gets in the 40s, right?
Yeah, they're very sensitive. That's why they've actually been living up here for a little while with the nighttime lows we get.
What do you have back there again?
There's so the big one here is cacao. Then there's mamey sapote, and the next one over is a sour sop.
Okay.
So those are the three really sensitive ones that they come in long before the others.
So, I mean, like, what's your plan with them? Are you going to build them a shelter or?
Yeah.
I mean, they got to go in the ground eventually, right?
No, they can fruit in containers. Well, I don't know about the mamey sapote. The cacao could fruit in a big container, and so could the sour sop. Our expert gardener, Paul Zamota, he's able to fruit them in a container. He brings his into his house, and he gets really nice sour sops on his.
How big is his container?
I would say.
What do they need?
I would say it's probably like a 30-gallon or so.
30-gallon. That's got to be heavy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But he does it. He manages. And it's impressive. The fruit are beautiful.
You almost got to get one of those big hand trucks so you don't throw out your back moving your trees
That's
around.
what I do. I have one. So
nice.
Yeah.
What else? You said you were out there right before we got on. You were out there covering stuff up. What else did you have going on out there that needed to be covered?
I had, I like to play it safe. I put a lot of energy into the garden, and I start a lot of container plants for giving away to friends or planting at the school garden and stuff like that. So I don't want to lose them if we get a freak dip where it's lower than expected. So a bunch of pineapple plants, little starfruit seedlings that I've been raising for 2 years, lots of fruit trees, but then I have seedling trays, little 6-cell plug tray or 6-cell inserts with things like my tomatoes and my peppers and my eggplants and some flowers that I'm starting and, all those vegetables that you were just mentioning earlier.
And did you just bring those in too?
Yeah, I put those into our little greenhouse that's on the side of the garage. It stays about 5 degrees warmer just from the concrete block kind of radiating any of the heat from the day. And 5 degrees will make that difference of whether or not we stay within the window of what they predict or if it drops down below what they predict.
And I mean, like my experience too is even just the cover of the greenhouse
keeps the dew off.
It stops that dew from dropping on there. Really, guys, now, excuse me, just one second. Come on. Go. Excuse me, just one second. Sorry. I have not covered up one single thing this year or brought anything in. Well, I take that back. I was just telling you that my trays with the tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants on them, I put the clear plastic cover over each tray, and they're on heating pads right now. But I mean, for the most part, most of what I have growing right now is just loving this colder weather. So absolutely loving it.
That's been my approach this year with the perennials in the garden. I haven't covered anything either. It was interesting. We were having the conversation about the temperature in Tampa, historical averages and stuff like that. And this year we've had way more chill hours than usual or in the past couple of years, but we haven't had the extreme low temperatures. We've had very few hard freezes, but we had lots of nights below 45.
Right.
So my jujube, if any of you know what that is, small apple. I grow a Thai variety. It's a green and yellow. It's got the same texture as an apple, a little bit less sweet, but they're delicious and very refreshing. That tree has been loaded this year. Last year, we didn't get a single one. So it needs that cold to set fruit and do well. My peaches are flowering out. I know you had that one that's like a freak that was just producing months ago. But
it has no flowers on it right now. I'm so upset. But The ones in my front yard right here are just absolutely covered. Let me see if you can see this. Hold on. Oh, I'm sure it's gonna probably glare.
Okay.
It's the window glare with the peach trees. There we go.
Oh, clear view right outside.
I don't know if you can see them. Can you see them?
I can't make out exactly. I think it might be. I see little white flowers.
Anyway, they're
Yeah.
covered in flowers right now. Absolutely covered. More than ever before.
What do you do for pruning on that peach tree? Do you have a little routine for them?
Pruning peach trees. That's like the bane of my existence. It's right next to my walkway to my front door. So they basically get pruned so that they're not in the way. That's how they get pruned.
Okay. Makes sense.
I used to really kind of follow along with what the farmer said to do as far as pruning the peach trees until I was visiting a community garden in Orlando that had it was in a park, and part of the community garden, I guess they had planted a bunch of fruit trees in the park that was accessible to the public. So there was probably a dozen peach trees that had been neglected for years that were loaded with nice sized peaches, like loaded.
Wow.
So
with no care, no pruning,
no pruning, no nothing. I've seen the same thing happen with blueberry bushes too. So I've started skipping 2 to 3 years on pruning my peach trees, and I've started skipping 1 year on pruning my blueberries.
How are those looking now for you?
Well, my irrigation timer for them went out for about a month, and I didn't realize it. So
a little bit rough.
Hopefully I didn't do too much damage to them, because those things need consistent water for sure.
Right. Yeah, they like that.
It was during one of those months that we didn't get it. I mean, this has been a pretty wet winter, but we had 4 weeks there or so, 3 weeks where we really didn't get any rain. And that's, of course, when my irrigation timer went out. Why don't you tell everybody about you have peach trees, right?
Yeah. So I have 2, and I had no idea about the pruning regimen that the farmers recommend, but you don't get fruit on the wood. It's always the year behind. It's similar to blueberries. The flower buds form on that older wood from the previous year. So you wait till the flowers start emerging. As far as I understand, I'm not an expert at pruning them, but from what I've read up on and what other friends of mine who are more knowledgeable than I have said is you wait till they break bud so you can see where your fruit is going to be, and then you can go ahead and start pruning back.
So what do you prune back? Places that just don't have flowers?
Well, you want to maintain your tree to where you can pick the fruit without a ladder, first of all. So I had shoots that were like 12 feet up in the air. So fruit that's 12 feet in the air isn't going to do me any good if I can't get to it. So I pruned it way back down, and then you want to get what they recommend is like an open upside down umbrella shape.
Right.
So you're looking for those branches kind of going outwards, and then from there tipping those back and forcing them to split again at a low range. So you're building kind of your scaffold structure first, and then once you get that established, you'll start to get the little twigs that'll grow out that actually have the flower buds and all that stuff.
Well, hold that thought, because I want to talk about what you were saying about the 2 years. Give me a second. Goodness gracious.
Life of pet ownership.
Yeah, furry kids. So I was thinking about this the other. I mean, I guess this isn't correct because it's been cold this year. It was not that cold last year. But I was just thinking, if they say that the bud wood forms from the previous year, I'm just wondering why it's not more affected by the chill hours of the previous year than the chill hours of this year.
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question. I mean, I guess I could suppose that it's not that the bud formation needs the chill hours. It's the buds already formed that need the chill hours to then break dormancy.
Gotcha.
That would be my understanding.
Interesting. I mean, I have more peach flowers on these peach trees than I've ever seen before.
I think they're just loving the chill hours. That's really what it comes down to. Is your trees in the past have probably had all the buds. They just never woke up without.
Right.
What did we say? We got 45 or so last year.
45, yeah. Well, no, it was 45 at
the point we were comparing.
Yeah, at the point that we were comparing. So I don't think we got much more after that. So it was definitely well below 100 chill hours last year for Tampa. Yeah. And I think when you and I were looking at it a few weeks ago, we were already over 150.
Yeah, well, we were
or 120 or something like that. So we're probably going to get close to 200 this year.
Someone was
just so for people who are watching. So why don't you tell everybody what are chill hours? Like what?
The chill hours are defined as the cumulative amount of time below 45 degrees. Anytime a plant is experiencing 45 degrees or below, it's like a running tally. How many hours do they rack up in a year below that temperature? And some fruits, like you see low chill hour stone fruits and apples, and like the Anna and the Dorset apples that people try to grow in Florida. I gave up on them because we haven't had the chill hours. And I was just going to say, I was reading online a couple of comments that were saying this could be the year for those people who are trying to grow apples in Florida. We're bordering on the edge of having enough chill hours for this to work.
How many chill hours do they need?
I can't tell off the top of my head, but Anna and Dorset are supposedly, and there's one more, I think it's an Israeli cultivar, that they need like 150 or 180, right in that ballpark. It's just that we're always skimming that edge, and it's like, are they going to work or are they not going to work? So it's one of those things where if you have the space, plant one and try it and see. But if you're like me with a quarter or a tenth of an acre, it doesn't make sense. I gave them to my neighbor. She has a double lot, and she's from up north, so she's like, "Oh, I want an apple tree." She planted them, and happy as ever.
Hey, Rob Clemens just piped up. He said
up,
apples are weak in 9B. I was actually going to bring up the fact that 9B is like 9B has so many microzones. It's ridiculous. Like I think there's probably some areas in 9B that are going to well clear that. Rob, you have your little weather station out there. How many chill hours are you at right now down there in Riverview? If he's still there. I wish I could see who's still here. And also, like, how many chill hours were you at last year? I'd be interested to compare that to like Tampa. I mean, I know that I can get in my car and drive.
Oh no. I knew you're the data man. You have all that stuff, and I was like really counting on you. But
so, Rob, for those of y'all watching on YouTube, Rob is commenting and joined us on Facebook, and he just said that his weather station's broken. It's one of the issues with trying to figure out chill hours without a personal weather station, because I think our closest station, it currently says the outside temperature is 695 degrees. Oh, that's hilarious. I'm sorry, that's not hilarious, but that's hilarious. Oh boy. It is definitely not 695 degrees outside. That's for sure. Rob, did you 95 hours last year? Yeah, see, I don't even think we broke 75 here in Tampa. You're always about 10 degrees colder than me out there in Riverview. Gosh, I mean, that is just and that's actually that's pretty low for chill hours. Hey, since I have both of you guys on, because you guys have your finger on the pulse of like research and stuff. I mean, I don't know enough about fruit trees. This might just sound really dumb, but it seems like they're always trying to develop fruit trees that need less chill hours. right? Wouldn't it be better to try and develop trees that redefine what a chill hour is? Like, in other words, instead of trying to figure out ones that need less chill hours, what if one considered 50 degrees a chill hour? Cold enough to count as time. Or is that just completely not how it works?
I don't know how the plants interpret what a chill hour is. I could guess it's chemistry. It's a reaction of some chemical or hormone inside of the plant that needs a certain temperature. But again, like you said, what's the define?
I tried to look it up, and just like I tried to look up like what is actually happening when it frosts outside when it's not freezing. And what I figured out very quickly is nobody knows.
There's a lot that science still hasn't explained. So it's maybe anybody out there interested. The universities have great horticulture programs, FAMU and University of Florida. If you're looking for a different path, that might be something to go into. You like plants, and you want to study this stuff. I'm trying to get my kids at school. I just had a kid asking me yesterday, like, can you go to school for studying plants? I was like, yeah, that's a thing. He was like, serious. He's like, I want to do that.
Okay, Jay York just piped up, and then Rob said he thinks it varies from tree to tree, which was that was kind of my guess, which made me almost think that maybe they could make some adjustments there. So Jay York says, I'm just going to read this for those watching on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, you can read it yourself. The hormone responsible for dormancy breaks down in this range, allowing buds to develop into flowers or foliage when the weather warms up in late winter. But it's from the Master Gardeners at UCCE. I mean, that almost sounds like something that could be tinkered with. I mean, if it's
what if you reduce the amount of hormone the plant produces, therefore it would seem like less chill hours would be necessary to break down that hormone if there was less hormone to break down.
Hormone responsible for dormancy. That's interesting. So it's a counter reaction. I would have completely thought the opposite.
The hormone is holding the plant back.
Yeah, the hormone's holding the plant.
Don't do anything. Once we're ready, I'll tell you, and then it can.
So really, when a plant is dormant, it's actually the opposite of dormant, because that's when it's actually doing something to not do something.
So would it make sense? Would it make sense then that the university is developing low chill hour fruit by reducing the amount of hormone that the plant is producing?
I mean, that might be what naturally is happening just through their unnatural selective breeding, through their unnatural selection. That might be what is happening on the side, on the side, just through them picking those traits.
Right.
But I'm wondering if anybody has looked into seeing. Okay, so we selectively breed all these peaches, and then we're like, okay, these over here. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. From what my understanding is there is a certain degree, sometimes a big degree, of accidental on the selective breeding. Right. They're just kind of throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, and then they start honing in on the ones that have the traits that they were really looking for. So I know in Balm they have hundreds and hundreds of acres of oranges and citrus that they're doing breeding experiments with and on for flavor and disease and stuff like that. So there is a certain degree of just chance. But yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if they do kind of go back and test and see what the actual differences are, and then they would be able to more manually do those changes. But now we're starting to sound
look into CRISPR, right?
We're starting to sound like the GMO scientists,
right?
So I've always told people that when they genetically modify something and they find a gene set that has got certain traits and then splice it in to figure out, to get those traits, that if they had spent 20 years selectively breeding plants to have those traits, that more than likely those organisms would have that same gene sequence by that time. It's almost just kind of it's like a workaround.
Yeah.
If there has to be something there that is making it express those certain traits.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was talking to you earlier about the mangoes that I'm growing from seed at school. I got a lot of select cultivars over the past 2 years, going down to South Florida and picking out the best of the mangoes and growing them from seed to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. If there's a peach that carries those superior flavor blends and all that, then great. If not, we just graft onto it. We put something that's more desirable. But essentially, we're doing the same thing that they're doing out there in Balm.
So I've always kind of thought that there's probably around Florida, there's probably thousands of superior varieties of mangoes that are sitting there undiscovered in somebody's backyard right now, just from the massive amount of mango seeds that probably made their way over here in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and of people leaving where they were from and coming here and probably bringing seeds or having seeds mailed or what have you, and then planting them out. And you got to kind of figure, like, whatever wasn't that freeze tolerant probably is dead.
Right. Yeah.
And whatever trees are 60 years old and the size of an oak tree are probably a little more on the freeze tolerant side. I mean, unless they just got lucky and we were going through one of those 7 to 15 year cycles without any hard freezes, that the trees were able to get bigger and more established.
I'm looking at the comments, and Christine Rivera just asked if I'm the one taking care of the fruit trees at Lowry Park. I did, was it last summer or the summer before, work on doing some pruning on those trees. I don't have a title or a responsibility to do that. I just know that they were there and they needed care. So I took some tools over there since I'm a teacher and I was off during the summer. So I said, let me go take care of those trees. I just hate seeing fruit trees look miserable. Not that, as we were saying, sometimes leaving them alone and just letting them do what nature intends also can produce equally or better results.
So, Rob, you're watching right now. Have you gotten out there and pruned your peach trees? Apparently, what you guys were telling me before is this was the time to do it. Because I was asking about this back in, when was that? October, November. Right. I was talking about pruning my peach trees. And everybody was like, no, don't do it. And then now everybody's like, well, get out there and prune your peach trees. Nope. Rob says nope. And it's like back in October, November, based on what my peach trees were doing at the time, I keep looking out here at my peach trees. Every bone in my body told me that's when I'm supposed to be pruning them. And right now, based on what they're doing right now, every bone in my body is telling me don't touch them. So Rob does it after they fruit. See, I get mixed up from the whole fruit community on when to do what to these things.
There's also the philosophy of thin your fruit to have better quality fruit. So doing the pruning as they start flowering reduces the number of flowers that are actually going to set fruit. So you might end up with, fewer peaches, but larger peaches.
Now I do that. When they actually set fruit, if there's any fruit directly on either side of each other, I grab the smallest one and pull it off. Or within like an inch of each other, You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if there's two peaches on a branch like that within an inch of each other, I'd pop the smaller one off. So Jay York found a video here. I'm going to go ahead and post it up here so people can see. So Jay York posted a link for a YouTube video that was a good video on pruning and when to prune peach trees. And I bet it's completely the opposite of other stuff that I've heard. So that's kind of what the two things that made me be like, you know what, I'm just going to kind of watch the trees and figure this out on my own. A couple factors. One was getting mixed information from people. Number two, a lot of that information was coming from people who were new farmers to Florida. Like hadn't been doing it as long as like farms up in Georgia and even further up. And, you know, they might do things a certain way for certain reasons to their trees. And I kind of felt like a lot of that information was just coming down and kind of getting echoed and regurgitated around without anybody really asking why. And asking, is this the best practice for this tree when you only have two of them in your yard? You follow what I'm saying? Like, and, you know, maybe they're trimming it a certain way so that they can get the equipment down the aisles and get the workers up and down the field the fastest and picking them. And
right, the thing I was saying about, you know, maintaining them short so you don't need a ladder. Yeah, you don't want to carry a ladder around 600 acres of peach trees. But right. For a home gardener, maybe you want a peach tree that's...
Well, that also might keep them out of the... Like, maybe the squirrels don't want to go out on those shaky branches as high up that they're going to fall off of. And, you know, in a larger orchard, maybe they have a better way of keeping the vermin away from, you know, when you have acres and acres and acres, it's probably a lot easier or harder and easier at the same time to keep them off your stuff. And if a couple get in there and eat some stuff, no big deal. But when you have two peach trees, that could be half of your peaches.
So our moral is question what you've been told.
Well, I mean,
try something different.
To me, unless it's really, really, really clear why we're doing what. Pew, pew. You know, yeah, shoot the squirrels. But if it's really, really clear why we're doing what, that's why I'm questioning it, because it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't make sense why everybody's saying to prune them when they say to prune them. And again, maybe I'm missing information and it makes sense. But I don't take everything at face value of like, well, because that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and speaking of, and you're definitely more of an expert on this probably than Peaches, but when do you trim your mangoes? And like when you do trim your mangoes and like you cut it so you get more like 3 to 5 branches from your cut spot, when do the tips decide that they're going to be flowers?
So like right now or in the next month or so, I would say don't prune anything. Right. Because they're going to be pushing out their flowers very soon if they already haven't. I've talked to a couple of people who said their flowers are starting to push. It depends on the purpose of pruning. Are you like a neighbor down the street? He pruned his back because the tree was just too big and it produced too many for the size of the tree. So he was like, if I cut off some flowers, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like your peach tree. It was in the way. Yeah. You know, if you're trying to look for budwood, you're going to prune at a certain time. You're going to wait to see the buds start to swell, and you're going to want to prune those at that point. But just for, you know, routine maintenance of the tree, I don't want to speak out of without the right knowledge. I don't know when you prune it. My gut instinct tells me to wait till after they've already set fruit in the harvest.
So Jay says he prunes his mangoes right after harvest. Big fan of this strategy from Senior Curator of Tropical Fruit, Dr. Richard Campbell. I'm going to go and put that up too. Jay with the links today. I was just curious if you actually knew when those branches start developing the buds for the next year. Jay, do you know? Because that would, I get it, you do it right after fruit, but that would help people maybe answer the question of if they're slacking or busy, like how long can they wait after fruit to actually prune the trees. I'm assuming by watching really aggressive mango farmers prune their trees every year that it isn't like peaches where it's formed the year before, or they wouldn't be getting anything. So it has to form from the time that the new growth starts coming out to when they're flowering right now. It has to form at some point. I'm pruning most of my trees right now just to maximize on how many mangoes we get per size of the tree. So instead of growing big, tall, lanky trees in some of these community gardens, we're trying to grow more, short, squat, bushy trees.
Yeah, look, for people who are in that situation, look at that Richard Campbell and his YouTube channel and how they're keeping their trees. I think they're at like 6 feet. They will do what you're saying and top the tree back when it's only like, I don't know, 2 feet tall. They want that first set of branches to start just above the ground level. You don't even want a trunk on the tree, really. And that allows you to keep your tree compact. And he was talking in one of his videos, the amount of fruit he was getting off the tree was like equivalent to some larger trees because I think he said he goes every like palm width. Once the branch comes out, it grows a palm width and they cut it. And that will then branch out and he lets that branch grow another palm width and he'll cut it. And it's just like a continual branching because
that's along the lines of my question. When do you stop that so you get mangoes that year? You know what I'm saying? Because it'll just keep growing during its growth spurt. So like
I want to say the apical bud is where the flower emerges from. So as long as it has sufficient time to develop, but I don't know. That's your question, right? Is from when you prune it, how long until that apical bud determines it's going to be a flower and not a new branch?
Not more branch, right?
So, but yeah, he's a great resource, and there's lots of videos online.
So do you do, Jay? You said Jay says, Kenny, that's what I do. 2 palms, completely cut back after harvest, and then you'll get a full flush before winter. So you just cut once. So what do you do? I guess, what do you do if it grows past 2 palms during its growth? That's just what you get for that year, and then you cut back 2 palms. So you might be cutting off giant branches depending on how much it grows. If I'm understanding you correctly, Jay, that after fruit you then go back and cut back to 2 palms from the last cut. If I'm understanding correctly. So you're not cutting 2 palms while it's growing. You're cutting once per year back to 2 palms. That's interesting. So we're saying 1 palm or we're saying 2 palms, right? But like I have 2 different size mango trees in my yard. Wouldn't it more depend on that particular type of mango's distance between the internodes?
I don't know that there's much difference between different varieties in their internode spacing.
For sure.
I mean there are, like Cogshell, for instance, is a relatively slow grower. And a lot of people are like talking about condo mangoes or patio mangoes and container varieties. And what I've come to understand, and I could be wrong, but that denotation is not the full size of that tree. It's just the speed at which that tree grows. So it can be kept in a container for much longer. And so Cogshell would maybe have closer internode spacing, but as it grows and gets larger after more years than another variety that grows faster, those internodes are going to be spaced relatively the same.
So in like between my yard and like 6 different school gardens and community gardens, I probably have like 12 different varieties of mangoes that I'm trying to prune and mess with and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed when I cut them back, and they start shooting out their growth, basically like some of them are shooting out this far and then getting leaves, and then again shooting out that far and then getting leaves, and some of them are shooting out this far, getting leaves, this far, getting leaves, this far, getting leaves. So in the same distance on some of them, you might only have 2 sets of leaves, and on other ones in that same distance, you might have 6 sets of leaves.
Yeah, and this is why the Rare Fruit Council that I'm part of is a great organization, because we bring in the experts. I try to learn as much as I can, but the human brain can just only retain so much information, and we can go back and look at some of the previous meeting notes and stuff like that. But we're actually planning with the Rare Fruit Council. I just had a board meeting the other day, Sunday, and we're talking about doing a little test run. Our venue said they'll work with us on our costs and stuff like that. So we're going to try to do a little test run, I believe, in May for our first meeting. April, the University of South Florida's plant sale is back on.
Say that again?
The University of South Florida's plant sale that they do in the spring is tentatively back on. So we're hoping to be there and be able to talk with the community members and answer any of their questions, and also provide some fruit trees and just get out and see people that we've been missing.
Is that it? That's the site, right? rarefruit.org?
Correct.
Okay.
We meet typically the second Sunday of every month, but right now you can find more information at rarefruit.org or look up the Tampa Bay. I'm sorry. Oh my God, now I'm drawing a blank. It's the Rare Fruit Council Tampa Bay Chapter. And we, on Facebook, you can look that up. It's the Rare Fruit Council Tampa Bay Chapter. And we'll post information as we get it. But we've just been holding off. We do have a lot of members who are at risk or high risk for this COVID stuff we're living through. So we haven't wanted to kind of force anyone or make any moves in gathering in public. But we definitely are ready to start testing the waters for those people who feel, whether they've had their vaccine or whatnot, or whether they just feel ready to get back into public sphere. So we're looking forward to that.
You guys were talking about potentially doing Zoom meetings. Did that not happen?
2 of our members actually went out to one of our members' farm homestead and shot a little video with them. And I think, myself included, I was really amped up at the beginning of this whole COVID thing. I had a little bit more time. I was recording little videos and posting stuff, and I felt like I was much more plugged in with the community and online community and stuff. But once school got back in session and everyone was started to get back to work and the kids were back to their routines and stuff like that, it just really didn't shake out. There was a lot of stuff that would have had to go on behind the scenes to get those things set up. And again, like I said in the last meeting, we don't have a huge amount of members who are tech savvy. So getting all of that set up was just not feasible.
So it just didn't happen.
Correct.
That's fair. So your first meeting in the space is going to be what day?
We're planning for May, so it'll be the second Sunday of May. And like I said, I'll keep everyone posted. I'll be blasting that out to all the local garden groups and everything like that once we get it set in stone and we know who our speaker is going to be.
Why don't you just tell? I know probably everybody who's watching probably knows about the Rare Fruit Council, but a lot of people watch these recorded. So why don't you tell everybody like a little bit more in depth about what the heck we're talking about?
So the Rare Fruit Council is a club. Is that what you're referring to? Is just what we do as a club and what we're all about? We're a 501c3. We meet community members to get together to trade information, trade seeds, trade plants, and bring experts in to educate us. We're kind of like a lot of times we're a medium between growers, the university, and other experts to help. Like I said, with the plant sale that we do at USF, we answer a lot of questions. People come in, they don't necessarily want to buy any plants from us. They're just, oh, you're the Rare Fruit Council. I have this tree growing in my yard. It has these fruits that look like this or that. And what are they? And we can kind of help people figure those things out. We do a couple of different events throughout the year. This year, the citrus celebration won't happen because the fair being moved to April, I believe it is. There will be no citrus available at that time. We were going to try to make something work with that, but it's just not possible to do a citrus celebration without citrus. I mean, we could go there and talk to people, but the whole fun is
what kind of celebration could y'all do in April?
I know there's lots of stuff that we grow. It's just an annual tradition. So,
Right.
With COVID, our traditions are changing, I guess, and hopefully we can get back to that. But the club was formed. It's a relatively old club. We've been together for around 50 years or so, and going strong. We have around 200 members and always looking for new people. It's only $20 a year, and that includes bringing a friend, a family member, a child. And yeah, so I was just looking at comments down here. Rob says blueberries.
Are you making a suggestion?
Rob, do you want to come speak to us about blueberries in your farm? We're looking for speakers. That would be awesome.
I think he just volunteered.
We've had somebody out from the university to talk about blueberries, but it's always interesting when you get the contrast of the grower versus the researcher. Like, what is practical and what is theoretical?
Oh my God, that sounds like what I was talking about earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Rob just volunteered to be the speaker, April speaker. So Rob, while you're on there, Rob from Bob's Berries is chiming in and part of the group and has graciously volunteered to be the April speaker, I guess, or May speaker. That's kind of the end of our blueberry season, isn't it? Like when you guys would be having, my understanding is like any blueberry you picks in Central Florida that are open past Mother's Day is like a miracle, right? Is that kind of, Rob, is that right? That Mother's Day is like Mother's Day weekend is kind of the last hurrah for you guys for you picks in Central Florida for blueberries? Well, yeah, he says he'll be opening blackberries in May. I didn't ask what your backup plan was. I'm saying when do you stop? When do you usually stop your U-pick for blueberries?
I feel like I remember picking blueberries in early May because I used to it was the only day I would take off of school. I just wanted to get out into the outdoors and go enjoy nice weather. Depends on season. Yeah, if it's early or late, that's a big factor.
Now that I put that out there, you guys check me on this. That it's Mother's Day weekend. That's the magic number. If you can find a place to go pick blueberries around Central Florida for Mother's Day weekend, it's an off year. That's an oddball year that you can actually go to a U-pick with your moms for Mother's Day weekend.
Hey, Christina Rivera is asking, where do we meet? That's a valid point. I didn't mention that. We meet here in Seminole Heights at the American Legion Post 111, which is right around the intersection of Florida and Sly. And then the meetings are normally around 1 o'clock. They go on for about 2 hours or so. And
the meetings entail, you've mentioned a speaker. You guys do
we
like
have
a swap, right? Y'all have a
yes.
swap?
Well, we actually have a raffle normally where if members bring a plant, they get a raffle ticket, and then you can come and basically it's a way to organize a swap, but also people who don't have a plant to bring can also buy tickets for that swap. And so you don't always walk away with something, but that's what one of the things that drew me into the club to begin with was when I went to my first meeting. I bought $5 in tickets, and I probably went home with like $50 in plants.
Nice.
And there's some people bring really cool stuff that you don't find at the big box nurseries. So
you know what's gonna suck? Y'all can't have the potluck.
That's been a big thing. People really love the potluck, and right now, we're calling that off for sure.
Yeah, I can't have the big like. Have y'all started trying to think of ways you can have like tasting for fruit, or is that gotta be?
So we actually didn't have our mango tasting last year because we were in the throes of all this mess, and I had proposed instead of doing a tasting of putting together like sample boxes and just say, here's 8 varieties of mangoes, and you could pay however much and let people, comment on that. And we were even talking about setting up something outside, bring a lawn chair and kind of like space out, social distance or whatever. But again, it was hard to implement.
I don't think that's a bad idea for the tasting. If you have like 1 or 2 designated people in full PPE, like dressed up like they're working in a restaurant, clean, masks on, and prepare everything and put them in individually packaged, sealed things and kind of gave them out like that, that would be an option for sure.
Right. Yeah. We're still talking about it, and it's going to come up real quick. May is just around the corner. June, I think June or I don't remember when our mango tasting is. I think it's June, but any case, it's going to pop up right around the corner. So it's one of the things that we did talk about at the board meeting was how we're planning on moving forward with those type of events.
So speaking of mangoes again, and we got plenty of people on here, how many, if you had to pick, how many classifications for mangoes for Central Florida would you say that there are? 3, early season, mid-season, late season, 5, super early season, mid-season, late season, and super late season, infinite, because who the hell knows what these trees are going to do. Like, how would you guys classify, like, how many classifications are there for like when different types of mangoes will fruit? Kenny, what's your guess?
I'm gonna say that it's very dependent on weather. So I'll just stay simple and stay with, your early season, mid season, and late season.
You don't think that there's some super early season and some super late season ones out there?
There are some interesting varieties that actually put on 2 flushes a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that goes against what I just said, but
I mean, so what would you consider? I would consider early season ones that typically are fruiting in late May, early June, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then I would consider late season ones that are typically fruiting in like what, August?
No, late. You can harvest all the way into like, I've seen harvested in like maybe September, October.
Yeah, I have too, but that's why I would classify those as super late. Because I mean, every variety you're only going to get 4 to 6 weeks out of it. Because I think mid season to me would be June, July, the ones that are June, July, and late season would be the ones that are typically July, August. So the ones that fruit typically as late as September, October, that's what I would classify as super late.
Rob just said there's a new variety, Avanti, that fruits as early as January.
What?
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
Rob, when does it flower? Like October?
I guess the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if people are looking into buying trees, if you could like get one from each section, you're going to have mangoes for the longest. You know, like it's
You don't want to be buried under 1,000 pounds of mangoes in
right. You're going to get 5 trees. You might as well try and spread it out instead of getting 5 mid-season mangoes.
Oh wait, what? That's a blue. What is he? Oh wait, we're having 2 conversations at the same time. I think Avanti is a blueberry.
From when it's hot to about when it gets too cool. Thanks, Rob. Little Jim is super late. So other than this, Avanti, is that what you said it's called?
That's a blueberry. He just confirmed that's a blueberry variety.
Oh. We're talking about mangoes here. So much fruit.
Rob, keep up with the conversation, man.
But I mean, seriously, I mean, are there mangoes that like will have fruit on them ready in like April, May, right? Or no?
I would say April's too soon.
April's
Probably
too soon.
Mid-May.
I'm gonna have to go back through posts.
If you're talking about Tampa,
I swear Paul had pictures, and I've seen people with pictures of them eating mangoes in April.
His Glen may be really early. I know his Glen is I think his Glen is the first one to fruit, and it may be early, but I don't think it's April.
You don't think it's April? Mid-May, you'd say would be super early?
Yeah, I'm taking some guesses here, but
all of these people are going
mid-May. Rob agrees. So, hey, I'll thanks for the support, Rob.
Avanti is a blueberry. I guess I'm a little late to the party.
There was a comment way back here about dragon fruit, which is I missed that one.
I'm scrolling back to that one too. She said, "You want to take it? Take the question." I'm looking. I don't see it.
It says, "Mary Frusa Rusa. I can't seem to get my dragon fruit to bloom or fruit, and it's like 4 years old. I got the solution for you." Guy told me to. I don't know how to explain. Let me draw. So if you cut a cross section of your dragon fruit, you're going to end up with something that looks like this, right? So if you go in here and you're going to cut, just snip it. You're not going to cut the whole thing, but on each of those sides, you're going to just take your pruning shears and you're going to kind of snip the tip of each of the little arms coming off of the dragon fruit. And so that's at the very tip. Just snip them. And it's similar to girdling a tree or to, the old like hammer a nail into the tree and stress the tree out. I think that triggers the dragon fruit to go ahead and produce a flower. And mine was the same way. I think I had it for 3 years. It never fruited. And this guy told me, he's like, just take your pruning shears, go to the tips, and snip each of the 3 sides. And sure enough, it started blooming.
Do you think that might have something to do with the way that the farmers build their posts for them?
Well, there's also
you know how they build the posts and then they put the square around the top? Because I would think it grows up and then it's going to like snap kind of on... You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to grow up and over, and then it's going to snap on the 4 2x4s. That you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. So with the dragon fruit, you want them to grow up, and you want to give them something to lean on because they're going to grow and they're going to hang back down. That triggers a hormone. That like arching over triggers a hormone in them, as far as I understand, and that causes them to start that process of producing flowers. But if they're still hesitant to flower, doing that little trick right on the end of where it hangs over, you're going to just come in with your pruning shears or whatever, your little bypass pruners, and just clip. I'm talking like a 1/2 inch. quarter of an inch. Just nick it on each of the little three sides.
Hang on. I think we need to really be able to show them. Give me just a second. I have a branch that just broke off and I stuck it in the ground. I'm going to grab it real quick.
Oh, perfect.
Okie dokie.
So go ahead and turn it around so we're seeing the fatter side of it. It's just easier to deal with.
What? Like that?
Yeah. So imagine those roots aren't there, and that's the end of your plant hanging down.
You mean that? No, that's the growth tip, right?
Well, you could do it that way too. It's just that growth tip is so small. It was easier to see on the other side.
So you want to look, but you're talking about cutting here, right?
No, the terminal end where it hangs down right on that tip. So imagine that's the end of your plant and it's hanging down. And you see how it has like three little fins that stick out. You're just going to come in on those fins about a half an inch in, and you're going to cut about a quarter of an inch. Just nick it.
Cut it.
Like on the... So the fin is sticking out where you're...
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on. So you're going to cut it in here?
Closer to the end.
Where's a pen? Okay. Let's see here. So you're going to cut it like in here?
Yep, just right close to the end. There you go.
And
And you're just going to make a nick on each of the little fins as they come out.
So each little, you're going to make a little nick. And you're going to make a little nick here.
Correct.
Okay.
On each of those.
I'm glad we're covering this because I always thought that they were talking about like making a nick here.
I mean, that could work.
Into the little pokey thing, the spike.
No, that's the bud where the flower is going to emerge from.
Yeah, that's why I thought you cut it.
You want to go between those. Because I think what happens, looking at the way the other plants work, is you're cutting off the transport of certain hormones as they flow through the plant.
Oh, interesting. So who was asking about that? I couldn't.
That was Mary Russo Fruso or something. Russo.
So I've had this dragon fruit for about 4 years, and I haven't gotten any fruit off of it either. So, but mine's
Looks like it needs some soil.
What's that?
Looks like it needs some soil.
Oh no, this is where it came. It grew up, and this was at the top of the plant, and it broke off. And then it was hanging there for so long that it started putting roots out. And so I just went ahead and broke it the rest of the way off to plant because I was like, well, it's trying to grow roots, so I might as well plant it.
Do you know what variety it is?
No, it is. I don't know if you knew them when they were here before they moved to Puerto Rico. Jessica and her husband from the Wild Guava. They were big into mangoes. They go to farmers markets and they sold mangoes, and they had a mango farm in Pine Island. And they also bred and sold fruit trees. And one of my clients that I had a garden at their house hired them to come and put like 40 fruit trees in their yard. And when they were done and they left, there was a little piece of a dragon fruit sitting on the ground. And so I knew it was a good variety because that was all they sold, but I don't know which one. I don't know what it is.
I've got like 5 going now. I was just curious because a lot of people are growing purple haze, and I didn't know this when I started out. That's my oldest one, but it needs a pollinator. So sometimes they'll flower, which they're still beautiful plants. They produce a great aroma, and I mean, it makes my whole property will smell like dragon fruit flowers when they start going off. So they're worth growing even if they don't fruit. But purple haze is a variety that will need something to cross with.
You said it needs what? It needs a
It needs a pollinator. It needs another variety to cross with. It's not self-fertile.
Gotcha. But you have five varieties. Where they just not flower at the same time?
They're just younger. They haven't started to flower yet.
Gotcha.
They're still growing up their post.
What is Corey talking about? Auxins.
Auxins. Oh, I've read about auxins. What do I remember about auxins though? Man, that's a test.
A plant hormone which causes the elongation of cells in shoots and is involved in regulating plant growth. Well, that told me nothing. I kind of figured. There was a guy here in Tampa that his main thing was he played with plant hormones, and I tried to like talk with him a few times. He could barely complete sentences, but he was working on some pretty wackadoo stuff. I mean, like what he was going for and what he kind of worked on in his backyard is kind of what we're talking about.
I like what Paul's doing with the seedless loquats. Have you seen what he's up to with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same thing where, you can play with the hormones. We do what we do with the nutrients and with the soil, but that's like just putting gas in the tank. And you start playing with the hormones, that's like playing with the gas pedal. You know what I'm saying? Like, my limited amount of tinkering with stuff is literally just adjusting what's in the tank. But that doesn't play with the pedal, so to speak. And that's what was messing with the hormones really, really does. I do know one of the things with using sea kelp is that has growth hormones in it for the plants. It's one of the reasons why it spurs growth. Michelle James says, now you know how us common folk feel sometimes with YouTube. Michelle, did you just try and refer to yourself as common folk? That's the funniest thing I've heard all day. So Rob Clemens says that the thing that he was messing with to make it seedless is
gibberellic.
You want to try and pronounce that?
I'll give it a shot. Gibberellic acid?
Gibberellic acid. So I'm assuming that's the hormone that they use. Don't they do something similar to like get seedless watermelons and stuff like that?
I don't know what's up with seedless watermelons. I don't know how that works.
And seedless peaches?
Speaking of seeds and peaches, I have a 2-year-old tree that I grew from one of my fruits. I put the seed in a bag and it's off to the races. I've heard that they can fruit as soon as 3 years from seed. So again, that's buy a grafted tree though. If you really just want fruit, I have no idea what this thing's going to do or if it'll do anything.
So weren't you playing like really hard with grafting a while back?
I've done some stuff. I had a couple of people ask me if I would help them graft trees. I had some stuff work, but I'm not really good at it. It takes a long time to get good at grafting. I think mangoes are fairly easy. Apples were the first thing that I grafted. Someone, what's his name? He's a surveyor. He lives up in Tarpon, or I think they just moved. You know who I'm talking about? I'm drawing a blank on his name. Anyway, he gave me 2 trees. He took them out of his yard because he gave up on them, and I planted them, but I grafted apples, and they took, like, first time I ever grafted, I was so excited. I was like, whoa, this is easy. But then I tried doing some avocados and was like, nope, failure. And I think you need to give them, it needs to be the right time of year. It needs to be the right humidity. You need to make sure that your cuts are straight and flat so that the wounds heal properly. There's just a lot of variables to it and lots of videos online that show you how to do it. But once you start trying it is when you really start learning. So
what were you grafting onto what?
So I always, every year at the mango tasting, I would take tons of mango seeds and plant them for grafting practice. And sometimes I would just graft the seedling onto another seedling just for practice. Other times I would go to neighbors or friends or whatever that have mango trees and say, hey, can I take some cuttings off of your tree? And if they take, I'll give you one that you can gift to a friend or something. And then recently somebody bought some scion, and they were like, I think they bought it without thinking, like, do I know how to graft? Or maybe they were like, I think I can graft, and then realized, man, I think I need a little bit of help. So I tried, and I feel really bad about that still. I think about it all the time is none of their grafts, none of the scions they paid for took. And
what part of the tree is that? So
remember how we were talking about, like, you go the 2 palms and then you cut? So you take the tip of a branch, and there's a couple of different ways you can graft, but you can take that tip and just before the buds break, you want to see them start to grow, but you don't want them pushing out yet. And you'll go and cut that off, and then you can join those 2 together with the rootstock. So basically, like, almost that point where I'm staring at the trees. Well, so some of my mangoes that have flowers on them right now, just a few weeks ago, they were newer varieties to me, so I really wasn't sure if they were one of these early, super early, mid, late, or super late. And when they had right when they were getting ready to push their flowers, I was looking at it going, is that flowers or is that more branch? You know, like, yeah, exactly.
Really is that kind of the point you're talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
If you prune them too soon, sometimes the buds won't emerge. They just don't have the force to be able to push out. But if you wait too long, sometimes what happens is the newly emerged bud will dry out. It doesn't have the sap flow yet to continue growing. So you just want that. It's like too much or too little. You got to be like right in between. And but there's other processes for grafting, like tea budding, and there's a few other ways to graft mangoes that are a little more tricky. And I think that's what most of the commercial growers are using. They're not doing as much of the, cutting tips off the trees and grafting them.
Yeah, they're not grafting branches on branches, aren't they? Like taking more of like a little square piece of
patch graft.
What's that?
It's like a patch graft or a shield graft.
Yeah, they're taking like a little piece off that's got a little, almost like a growth bud on it, and then kind of sewing it into the tree.
Yeah, exactly. Why am I drawing a blank? He's a really nice guy. He was always very helpful. He used to sell
Michelle. No, Michelle already said it. It's Joe Haggerty.
Oh, Haggerty. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, that's right.
In
any case, yeah.
But
so
I'm assuming that's more of what they usually do. The way that the way that the grafts are always coming out at an angle off to the side. I'm assuming that they're patching something in. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's typically what they use. In fact, we invited, Zill. Well, maybe some of you who know fruit trees might know Zill's nursery. He has a brother, and the brother does a little bit of work still. He has some groves, but he's an older gentleman, and he came and spoke with us. But he's like, I won't reveal our top secret way that we graft our stuff, but he showed us some alternatives. Speaking of that, I've kind of run into the same thing. So I've talked to like a few organic strawberry farmers who kind of give me most of the information, but there's still some information they just won't give me. And I'm like, I'm not trying to start a strawberry farm and compete with you. I'm trying to help people grow strawberries in their yard. And that's what one of the things that kind of stinks is some of these people get it nailed down and then they start playing their cards really close to their chest. Right. Very frustrating. But I guess it makes sense. They don't want to. It's hard being a farmer. Right. Profits are slim and competition is tough. Yep. So, but as we learned though, when there was absolutely zero peach trees available for anybody because the 2 people doing it in the state, Rob knows more of the details than I do, had some issues with the hurricane or something like that. And then now nobody could get peach trees because everybody played their cards so close to their chest and
Not enough people know. But I almost blame that more on the university system and the Department of Agriculture for letting something like that happen. To me, that's really their job, to make sure that we have enough base of, a good enough baseline for production and for whatever it is, root stock. I don't know what it was that they lost out on, but
yeah, there was a lot of destruction after one of those hurricanes a couple of years ago.
All right. Well, let me know. So are you going to be doing a lot of grafting experimentation with the kids at the school?
Well, we're going to try doing some here in the next month or so as things hopefully start to, well, I say hopefully, but things warm up. We'll be doing some air layering, which is fun. It's a very easy process you can do fairly cheaply. Just take some soil and some saran wrap and aluminum foil. You can look up air layering, and you can multiply your plants out. We're going to do some of that. I'm going to be showing them how to do some grafting, and I'm not sure I want to give razor blades to a bunch of my kids. I cut myself quite often when grafting because you're cutting towards yourself trying to make some of these cuts, and it's a little bit tricky. But
look, just really quick, we're going to go here in a minute because my dinner's starting to smell really good. Just right off the top of your head, what are some good trees to try and learn air layering on? And which ones are just a terrible idea to try air layering on? So
quickly, air layering hibiscus is really easy. If you want to feel successful, air layer a hibiscus. Jamaican cherry air layers pretty easily. I'm missing something that's very obvious.
Starfruit?
I haven't had success with starfruit, but I haven't tried that many times. Excuse me. So, yeah, I would say Jamaican cherry's got to be like the top easiest one.
You could just stick those branches in the ground, though.
Yeah, I guess you could. But
mulberry, Corey says mulberry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, mulberry.
Guys, if you're watching, rattle off the best ones so people can go back and watch these for air layering, learning how to air layer. How about that plum thing in my yard?
I tried to do a Java plum before, but it didn't take.
Barbados cherry, really?
Lord I've got Barbados cherry cuttings to take. I've never tried.
Lord knows you can't grow them from seed.
Anyway,
figs.
Yeah. Oh, figs. Yes, figs are super easy. That's like. I would put figs above all else. Those air layer and root really easily.
Okay, and anything, guys, that's a hard no on air layering. Everybody you know's tried it. It's in the growing Bible. It just doesn't work. It won't work. I would say avocado, right?
I don't know anybody who air layered avocado.
What about peaches?
I have a feeling peaches would work.
What about any stone fruit? Scott Smith, avocado as a hard no or avocado as a maybe yes? Mango, avocado, not a good idea. I'm assuming that these are going to be things like whether it works or not, things that need a big taproot, and then ones that don't. That would be my assumption.
Hey, people, real quick, people who have a cherry laurel tree, I think that's in the prunus family. Talking about grafting, I've heard of people trying to graft. And a couple of people, what's his name? David the Good. He's like a mad scientist, was grafting peaches onto cherry laurel or something like that. I'm getting mixed up, but they're in the same. They're close enough. Their relationship is close enough that it's possible. So don't cut down your cherry laurels. Just graft onto them.
And where are they grafting on? I'm sorry, I was reading what Paul wrote. Where are they grafting onto them, Kenny?
Because they're in the prunus genus, you can graft peaches to them, or not. Maybe it's peaches. Peaches are prunus, right? Yeah. Anyway, there's another prunus species that it's possible, but not likely or not common. So if you like experimentation and you want to see what you can do, there's lots of fun and interesting things that can be grafted that you wouldn't think about.
So Paul says that star fruits are tough to air layer. Plums are easy. So why would plums be easy and not peaches?
Didn't we establish? I think peaches would work.
What's that?
I think peaches would work. I have a strong feeling peaches are not that hard because you.
Well, you have a classroom. I
know we need to start experimenting on a lot of this stuff.
Start experimenting with this stuff with the kids for sure.
We're trying to build up our mother plant stock so that we have stuff to play with out at the school. I have a lot of things that I've brought in, but peaches are one thing we don't have anything to play any way to play with right now. So my 2 are here in the ground, but if we get a peach tree in the future, I'll be happy to give those a go.
Then, so like, what's the peach that grows true to seed? Red something?
Ceylon?
Red Ceylon?
I think so. That's the only one I know that's red.
I think I have a peach that I bought that is it's growing from the rootstock, and the top of the tree is looking really bad, and I'm pretty sure it's one of those. I'm going to let it just keep going.
Christina Rivera has a great idea for you. Get Paul on here.
To have Paul on? Hey, Paul, you want to join me in 2 weeks? I want to talk to people. People are all asking about grapes. You don't have to answer on here. I'll hunt you down. So 2 weeks from today. What is that? All right, guys, it's getting close to my dinner time. I'm starving. Kenny, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, thank you so much for your participation. And Paul said yes. Woo!
Awesome.
In 2 weeks, we're going to have Paul on. That'll be great. Talk about some stuff. All the great and interesting experiments he has going on in his yard. Paul, you guys came in kind of simmer down, fans. Paul, what is the mango that you are growing that fruits so incredibly early? I know you post pictures of it every year. I also know that part of it is because you cover it up in your little makeshift greenhouse thingy. But I would just be, we can talk about all that next week because I'm really interested to know what type it is. But thank you, everybody, for joining me. If you're watching this and you're not watching live, we do this every Wednesday at 5:30. Every other week, I have a special guest. It's Kenny Gil. Thank you, Kenny, for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. As always. Loved it.
If you can't join, but you have gardening questions or you have something that you want to go over with the guest or with myself, you can always send the topic or the questions to info at witwamorganics.com. If you are like some people I know and just getting the heck off Facebook, this is being simulcast live on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel, but you should go over there and check it out and like those videos anyway. Help me out. I'm trying to kind of build up the base on that so I can do some more stuff with the channel. But thank you, everybody, and enjoy yourselves. Have a good evening, and I will see y'all next week. Kenny, see you.
Take it easy. Thanks.